11 men are standing on a mountain in Galilee. They are not 11 confident men. Matthew tells us that when they see the risen Jesus, some of them worship him and some of them doubt. And Matthew includes this detail not by accident. It is the most honest sentence in the resurrection account, and it is the setup for everything that follows. The men who received the last request of Jesus are not the most faithful men in the room. They are the only men in the room, and some of them are not sure what they are looking at. Jesus gives the last thing he is going to say on earth to a group of doubting worshipers on a hillside in Galilee. What he says is 4 clauses long. It contains 3 participles and 1 imperative verb. And hidden inside it, inside the grammar, inside the setting, inside the words that have been quoted and memorized and preached for 2,000 years, is something that most people who know this passage by heart have never stopped to see. The last request of Jesus is not a new thing. It is the oldest thing finally being completed. We will get there. But first, why the mountain? Why Galilee? Why these 11 broken men, some of whom are still not sure what they believe? Because everything in Matthew's gospel has been moving toward this exact moment. And the moment was always going to happen here. Matthew's gospel has a structure that most readers feel without being able to name. 5 great blocks of teaching, and 4 of the 5 major teaching moments in Matthew happen on mountains. The Sermon on the Mount in chapter 5, the most famous sermon in human history. The Transfiguration in chapter 17, a mountain in the north where 3 disciples see the face of Jesus change and hear the voice of God and fall on their faces in the dirt. The Olivet Discourse in chapter 24, the Mount of Olives, overlooking Jerusalem, where Jesus describes the end of the age. And now this, a mountain in Galilee, the last teaching, the last words. Every time Matthew wants you to pay attention to something Jesus says, he puts him on a mountain. And there is a reason for that, which goes back further than Matthew. The mountain in the Hebrew imagination is not simply terrain. It is the place where heaven and earth meet, where the vertical axis of divine reality intersects with the horizontal plane of human life. Abraham goes up a mountain to offer Isaac and hears the voice of God before the knife falls. Moses goes up Sinai and comes down with the law written on stone. Elijah goes up Horeb and hears the still small voice after the wind and the fire. The mountain is where God speaks and humans listen. It is where the commission comes. So when Matthew tells you that the 11 disciples went to the mountain in Galilee, the mountain Jesus had specified, the one he had told them to go to, you should hear the geography as theology. This is the place where God speaks one more time. Pay attention to who is on this mountain, because it will change what you hear when the words arrive. There are 11 of them, not 12. Judas Iscariot is gone, the betrayer, the one chosen after a full night of prayer on a different mountain, the one whose name was spoken at dawn after Jesus knew what that name would eventually cost him. Judas is gone, and the circle is incomplete. There are 11. 11 men who abandoned him in the garden. 11 men who fled when the soldiers came. 11 men, at least one of whom denied knowing him 3 times by a charcoal fire, and some of whom are still working out what the resurrection means while they are looking at the evidence for it standing in front of them. He gives the last request to these people, not to the ones who never wavered, not to the ones who stood at the cross when the others fled, not to a fresh cohort of untested followers who have no complicated history with him. To these 11, with their failures and their doubts still warm, on a mountain in Galilee. Before he says a word about what he wants them to do, he says something about what has already been done. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. The Greek word is exousia, authority, the right to rule, the power to enforce. It is not a modest claim. All authority in heaven, the spiritual realm, the angelic order, the invisible structures of the universe, and on earth, the political realm, the empires, the kings and governors and prefects who have been deciding the fates of nations since the first city was built. All of it, given to him. 600 years before this mountain, a prophet named Daniel had a vision. In the vision, he saw one like a son of man, coming on the clouds and approaching the Ancient of Days. And to this Son of Man was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, and all peoples and nations would serve him, and his dominion would not pass away, and his kingdom would not be destroyed. Every Jewish person standing on that mountain in Galilee knew that vision. They had grown up with it. They had waited for it. And Jesus is standing in front of them saying, "It has happened. What Daniel saw has arrived. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." Then comes the word that changes everything. One word in Greek, aun. Therefore. Not a transition word, a logical word. A word that says, because what I just told you is true, what I am about to tell you follows necessarily. The authority precedes the commission. The mission is not possible without the authority, and the authority makes the mission not just possible, but inevitable. Here's what most people miss about the therefore. Jesus does not begin with the command. He begins with the claim. He does not say, "Go into all the world and I will back you up with authority later." He says, "All authority has been given to me. Therefore, on the basis of this fact, here's what that authority means for you." The 11 broken men on a mountain in Galilee are not being asked to accomplish a divine mission out of their own spiritual resources. They are being sent by the one who holds all authority in both realms. But there is something even older than Daniel 7 inside this moment, something that goes back to the very beginning. In Genesis 1, before the fall, before the serpent, before anything went wrong, God creates the first human beings and gives them a commission. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, have dominion. It is the original mission, image bearers of God expanding into all the earth, filling every corner of creation with the presence and purpose of the one who made them. The first Great Commission. And it failed. Not immediately, but the garden became a place of hiding and accusation rather than fruitful expansion. The image bearers chose the serpent's offer over the Creator's commission. Cain and Abel, the flood, the Tower of Babel and the scattering of languages. The earth got filled, but not with what the commission intended. Then God found a man named Abraham and made him a promise. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:3. Not just Israel, not just one family from one city in one region of the ancient Near East. All peoples. The Hebrew word is mishpachot, all the families, all the clans, all the ethnic groups of the earth. The commission of Genesis 1 had failed through the first man. It was being recommissioned through one family, not because God had given up on the nations, but because he was going to reach the nations through Israel, through one line, through one promised seed. Matthew knows this. His gospel opens with these words, a record of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Not just a genealogy, a theological claim. This man, this Jesus, is the one the Abraham promise was always heading toward, the son of Abraham, in whom all the families of the earth will be blessed. The last request of Jesus does not begin on a mountain in Galilee. It begins in a garden in Genesis. Now we get to the words themselves. And this is where most people who know this passage by heart have been reading it wrong. Not wrong in a way that damages their understanding, but wrong in a way that misses what it is actually asking. Because the sentence most people think is, the Great Commission contains, in the original Greek, only one command, one imperative verb, one thing Jesus actually demands, not go, not baptize, not teach, mathetiusate, make disciples. The Greek word mathetes, the root of mathetiusate, means a learner, someone who has attached themselves to a teacher, not just to receive information, but to be formed by the teacher's way of living, thinking, and seeing the world. In the ancient world, a disciple was not a student in the modern sense, someone who attends lectures and takes notes and passes exams. A disciple was an apprentice in the fullest sense of the word. You followed your teacher. You watched what he did before dawn and what he did after dark. You ate what he ate, went where he went, asked the questions that the journey raised, and allowed the accumulated weight of proximity to a wise person to change the shape of your mind. The word derives from the Greek root math, which indicates, as one scholar put it, thought accompanied by endeavor. Not thinking alone, not endeavoring alone, both together, inseparably, in the presence of the one who is being followed. This is the only imperative in the entire commission, and here's what that means for the way you read everything around it. Go. The word that most people think is the central command is actually a participle in the Greek, literally, as you are going. It is not the command, it is the context. You are already going somewhere. Your life is already in motion. The commission does not ask you to stop what you are doing and start doing something entirely different. It says, as you go, as you move through the life you are living, make disciples. The going is assumed. The making is the command. Baptize, another participle. The entry point, the moment of public identification, the ritual that marks the beginning of the disciple's life with the community of Jesus. It is not the destination, it is the door. Teaching, another participle, the ongoing formation, the daily instruction, the long, slow work of helping someone learn to obey everything Jesus commanded. 3 participles serving one imperative. 3 supporting actions orbiting a single center of gravity. And the center of gravity is not a journey or a ritual or a curriculum. It is a relationship, the relationship of a disciple to a teacher that changes not what a person knows, but what a person is. Stay with me, because this distinction matters more than almost anything else in the commission. The 11 disciples on that mountain are not being told to make converts. The word mathetheusete asks for something much more specific and much more demanding than any conversion event. A convert is someone who has changed their mind. A disciple is someone who is changing their life. And the changing of the life is the thing that only happens through the long, patient, intimate work of proximity. The way a disciple is formed, not in a single moment of decision, but in the accumulated days and years of following someone who knows the road better than they do. Jesus is asking the 11 to do for others what he has spent 3 years doing for them. He is asking them to replicate the thing that has been happening to them on every road they have walked with him, at every table they have shared, in every storm they have ridden out, and every miracle they have watched. Make people like that. Make people who are becoming what you are becoming by the same means, by following, by proximity, by the long work of learning to think and live and love the way the teacher does. This is mathetheusete. This is the only thing Jesus asked for. Now watch where he asked it to go. Panta ta ethne, all the nations. The phrase sits inside the commission like a stone thrown into still water. The ripples from it expand outward until they reach the edge of everything. Ethne, the Greek word that gives us the English word ethnic. It does not mean political nations in the modern sense, with their borders and governments and flags. It means the ethnic, linguistic, cultural, tribal groups that make up the human family, the clans, the peoples, the distinct communities of language and custom and story that have existed since the Tower of Babel scattered the human family across the face of the earth. Not every nation state, every people, every one of them. There is no people group exempted from panta ta ethne. There is no cultural community so remote, so closed, so historically resistant that it falls outside the scope of the last request. All of them, every last one. And here's where the commission stops being a missionary strategy and becomes a fulfillment. 4,000 years before this mountain in Galilee, God spoke to a man named Abraham in the city of Ur and said, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. All peoples on earth, mishpachot, all the families, all the clans, every ethnic and linguistic community on earth. God told Abraham in Genesis 12 that through his seed, all the nations, all the ethne would be blessed. And then the entire Old Testament is the long story of how that promise moved through history, through Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses and David and Solomon and the prophets and the exile and the return, always pointing forward, always carrying this weight of promised universality. And then Matthew opens his gospel with the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Son of Abraham, the seed through whom all the nations will be blessed. And Matthew closes his gospel, the very last paragraph, the very last words, with Jesus standing on a mountain and saying, make disciples of Panta ta ethne, all the ethne, all the nations, all the peoples, every family of the earth. The last request of Matthew's gospel is the answer to the first promise of Genesis 12. Pay attention to the architecture of this. Matthew is not being accidental. He has structured his entire gospel as a movement from son of Abraham to all nations, the promise narrowing down to one person and then expanding outward to encompass every person. The seed of Abraham is standing on the mountain in Galilee, telling 11 doubting worshipers that through them the blessing will now go out to every family of the earth. 4,000 years of accumulated promise, arriving at this mountain in these words. In Acts chapter 1, Luke records what Jesus says before the ascension, the commission in its geographic form. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, and in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Jerusalem first, then the surrounding region, then Samaria, the territory that has been off limits for 700 years, then the ends of the earth. This is the outline of the book of Acts. Every chapter traces that movement outward. Luke structures his entire second volume around the last words Jesus speaks before he disappears. The last request of Jesus is the sentence the rest of the New Testament is written to fulfill. And then there is the name. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. One name, in the singular. Not names. Name, onoma. One name, three persons. The Trinity expressed not as a doctrine to be argued, but as a formula to be practiced, spoken over every new disciple as they enter the water. The God who is three in one is the God into whom every new disciple is initiated. And that name, the Holy Spirit, is exactly what Jesus in Acts chapter 1 says they are about to receive. The commission does not send them alone. It sends them into a name, and that name, they are about to discover, has come to live inside them. We have been building toward one sentence, not the command, not the authority declaration, not the geographic expansion. One sentence, 4 Greek words, at the very end of the very last paragraph of the Gospel of Matthew. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. This is not an afterthought. This is the point. And to understand why, you have to go back to the first chapter of Matthew's Gospel. In Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, Matthew quotes the prophet Isaiah. He quotes it because the birth of Jesus fulfills Isaiah's prophecy, the one that says, "A virgin will conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel." Emmanuel. The Hebrew word is not complicated. Im, with, anu, us, el, God. Put them together, God with us. Matthew opens his gospel with a name, Emmanuel. That is a theological statement. God has come to be with us, not above us observing, not behind us pursuing, with us, present, in the same physical space, breathing the same air, eating at the same tables, walking the same dusty roads, sleeping in the same kind of boats, weeping at the same kind of graves. God with us. And then Matthew writes 28 chapters, the ministry, the miracles, the cross, the resurrection. And at the very end of the very last chapter, the very last sentence of his entire gospel, Jesus says, "And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." I am with you always, all the days. Matthew opens with God with us. Matthew closes with, I am with you always. This is not a coincidence. This is a literary structure that biblical scholars call an inclusio, a bracket, a frame, marking the beginning and end of a unified whole by repeating the same theme. The Gospel of Matthew is an inclusio. It begins with Emmanuel and ends with, I am with you always. And everything between those two moments is the story of what it looks like when God keeps the promise that his name contains. Now the open loop closes. I told you at the beginning that hidden inside the last request of Jesus was a promise answering a question waiting since the Garden of Eden. That promise is not Matthetusate. It is not Panta ta ethne. It is not the Trinitarian name or the geographic commission or the authority declaration. It is 4 Greek words at the end of the last sentence. Kai ido, ego methimon eimi. And behold, I myself am with you. The word ido is an attention-commanding word. Behold, look, pay attention to what is about to be said. Matthew uses it at critical moments throughout his gospel. The angels use it at the birth. The voice from heaven uses it at the baptism. When Matthew says Ido, he means this is the thing you should not miss. And behold, I myself, ego, emphatic, personal, the pronoun pushed to the front of the sentence for weight, am with you. Present tense, active, ongoing, not a promise about the future only, but a statement about the present moment and every present moment that will follow it. All the days. Pas tas hemeras. Every single day. Not the days when the mission is going well. Not the days when the disciples are making progress and the momentum is building. All the days. The days of imprisonment and shipwreck and beatings and the silence of cities that will not listen and the loneliness of roads far from home. All the days. Every single one. To the very end of the age. Not until you accomplish the mission. Not until the commission is complete. To the very end of the age. Beyond the horizon of any human lifetime. Beyond the lifespans of everyone standing on that mountain in Galilee. The promise extends past every generation of disciples who will ever follow them. To the very end of the age. And this is where the last request stops being a commission and becomes something else entirely. Because you do not commission someone and then stay with them. You commission someone and send them. That is what a commission is. The one who commissions stays, and the one who is commissioned leaves. But this is not what Jesus does. He gives the commission and then he gives the promise. And the promise is that the one who commissions is going with the ones he commissions, not watching from a distance, not available for consultation when things get especially difficult, present with them in every city, on every road, in every conversation, in every moment of doubt and fear and failure and starting over. He commissions and he accompanies at the same time, always. And here is what that means for the way you read the commission. Most people who hear the Great Commission feel the weight of the command without the foundation of the promise. They hear, go into all the world and make disciples. And they hear in it the scale of the task, the enormity of the need, the gap between what they are and what the mission requires. They hear it as a pressure, a responsibility, a standard they are perpetually falling short of. And the pressure is real. The task is enormous. The gap is genuine. 11 men on a mountain in Galilee could not, by any reasonable human calculation, accomplish what Jesus is asking. They do not have the numbers, the resources, the influence, or the courage to do what the commission requires. But the commission is not asking them to accomplish it on their own. It is asking them to go. And it is promising that when they go, they will not go alone. The power, dunamis, the word Jesus uses in Acts 1:8, is not theirs to manufacture. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. They are not the source of the energy for the mission. They are the vessels through which a power that belongs entirely to someone else moves into the world. I am with you always, not beside you, at a slight distance, in case you need me. With you. The Greek preposition meta, with, implies accompaniment, shared experience, presence in the middle of the activity. I am with you, the way I was with you on the road, the way I was with you in the boat in the storm, the way I was with you in the garden when you slept and I prayed and we were in the same dark together. That kind of with. Now the pattern completes. The commission begins in a garden where God commissioned image bearers to fill the earth, and they failed. It narrowed to a promise to one man, Abraham, that all the families of the earth would be blessed through his seed. It traveled through 4,000 years of history, through Israel and the prophets and the exile and the return, always carrying that universal promise forward. It arrived at a genealogy, son of Abraham, son of David, that announced who the seed was. It ran through 33 years of incarnation, 3 years of ministry, 3 days of death, and 40 days of resurrection appearances. And it came to rest, finally, on a mountain in Galilee, in a sentence spoken to 11 doubting worshippers who are about to be sent into all the world. Not alone, with him. The last request of Jesus is not primarily a request at all. It is a promise wrapped in a command. The commission is the wrapper, and the presence is the gift inside it. He is not asking the 11 to go into all the world and accomplish something on his behalf while he waits for reports. He is saying, I have all authority, therefore go, and I am going with you all the days to the very end of the age. Emmanuel, God with us, still, always, to the very end. There are three things I want you to carry out of this. The first is this: the last request of Jesus is the oldest request, renewed, specified, and finally given the means of its fulfillment. It did not begin on a mountain in Galilee. It began in a garden in Genesis. Genesis 1, fill the earth.
Genesis 12, all peoples will be blessed through you. Daniel 7, all dominion given to the Son of Man. Matthew 28, make disciples of all nations. 4 texts, 4,000 years, one commission that has been building since the first day God put image bearers in a garden and asked them to expand his presence into all the earth. The second is this: the only imperative is matheteusate, make disciples, not converts, not church members, not people who have heard and agreed, disciples, apprentices, people whose lives are being slowly, daily, irreversibly shaped by proximity to Jesus, the way the 11 were shaped by 3 years of following him through every kind of road and storm and mountain. The going and the baptizing and the teaching all serve this one thing. And this one thing is not a program. It is a relationship, the oldest and most demanding and most transforming kind of relationship there is. The third, and this is the one I want you to sit with longest. The last request ends with a promise, not a pressure. I am with you always. Not with the strong and the certain and the ones who have resolved every doubt. With you. The word Matthew uses to describe some of the disciples on that mountain, distazo, to waver, to stand in 2 places at once, is the same condition many people watching this video are in right now. You believe enough to worship, and you doubt enough to wonder, and you are not sure whether the gap between those 2 things disqualifies you from the commission. It did not disqualify them. Jesus gave the last request, the oldest commission, the Abraham promise, the Daniel vision, the global scope, the Trinitarian name, the geographic mandate, to 11 people, some of whom were wavering. And then he said, I am with you always, all the days. Not the days when you have resolved the doubt, not the days when the faith is clean and the mission is clear, all the days, including this one, Emmanuel, God with us, still. If this video meant something to you, leave a comment below with the word Emmanuel. Just that one word, the word that opens this gospel and the promise that closes it. And if you know someone who is in the middle of a commission they feel unequal to, someone who is trying to be faithful in a task that feels too large for what they have, share this with them.
Not because it will make the task smaller, but because sometimes the most important thing a person can hear is that the one who gave the commission has not stayed behind. He is with you all the days to the very end of the age. Not because it will make the task smaller, but because sometimes the most important thing a person can hear is that the one who gave the commission has not stayed behind. He is with you all the days to the very end of the age. We will see you in the next one.